Hi, this is Dr. Diane from Kaiser University, and I am going to talk to you a little bit about beginning your research, how to define your question so that you can study it. We'll go over how to choose a topic, how to decide if that is doable or appropriate, how to narrow it down, how many questions to include or hypotheses, and let's get started. How to choose a topic. The most important thing is that you love your topic, really that you're interested in it. If you decide to actually conduct this research and do it as a thesis, you will be reading about this a ton. You'll be spending a lot of time with it, so make sure that it is close to your heart. It also should be something that would be beneficial for you to know. You might be interested in something that would have no use for your future. It's better for you to pick something that will help you in your job market, in your career. And it should be something you want to be known for. Your thesis, if you do it, will be publishable if you do a good job. That's the goal. And this is something that you will carry with you and people will find when they look for you on the internet and when they look at your CV, they will see that this is something that you've done and this is something you will be known for. It needs to be something unique, meaning it shouldn't have been done before. Not to say that you have to come up with some idea that is completely out of the ballpark unique. No, you need to find something that identifies a gap in the literature and addresses it. You can do this by reading up on your topic area, find the most recent one, look at future suggested work that author suggests. That might give you some ideas. It should also be something academic. This is important because a lot of basic research will happen in your place of work. And basic by meaning simple research will happen where you work in terms of are the employees happy? Is the food the right food that they give out in the morning or at meetings? Are their desks okay? And that is great. However, unless it's done in a way that's academic, that information is specific to your workplace. So, for the purposes of your academic work, your research should also be academic. It also should be something that you already know something about. You've already been in school for a bit, so you've read some articles. Hopefully by now you have some interests. Even better, you might already be working in a field where you feel passionate about that field and you know something about it. That's a great place to start. And perhaps most importantly, at least for the purposes of your academic life in graduate school, your topic needs to be something that is doable. Meaning you need to be able to finish it within the amount of time you have allotted for yourself. So let's first discuss how to find out if something is doable. One is that it needs to be unique. I mentioned this a little bit. It hasn't been done before. That's important because you need to make an original contribution to the available current academic research. You can use previous work and vary it just a tad, as long as it's new and unique. Perhaps something has been done and it was done 25 years ago before teenagers and adults were using social media every day. Perhaps you add in the variable or the population of social media users. This could change the research considerably and be unique, even if it was otherwise identical to existing work. And it needs to be important. Your research should contribute in some way to the academic field. This should help advance the body of knowledge that exists. And that is part of identifying the gap in the literature and finding something new to do. and it should be generalizable. Remember what I said about all the research that happens on a daily basis in your workplace, things that you just might think about to make people happy or make clients happy and whatnot? Well, the work that you do for your thesis or in academic life needs to be generalizable, meaning that the results of your work need to be able to be applied to people who are not the exact ones that you studied. So you can do a study on the workplace, but it should be done in a way that can be applied to other work settings so that you help other people and you contribute to the academic body of knowledge. We recommend that you conduct quantitative research. The reason being is that it is measurable and you can get it done. Quantitative research is a measurable way to investigate the relationship between variables. You have an independent variable and a dependent variable. The independent variable is something that stays the same no matter what you do in your study. For example, gender, boys and girls. Or, for example, place where you live. These are things that would be unaffected by the other variable that you're examining, which is the dependent variable. The dependent variable is going to depend on the independent variable. So, for example, if you want to see if gender makes a difference in anxiety, gender is going to be your independent variable, and your dependent variable will be anxiety. You're going to measure anxiety, and you are theorizing, your hypothesis is that it's going to matter if you're male or female when it comes to anxiety. So anxiety is going to depend, that's your dependent variable, on whether or not you're male or female, which is your independent variable. You're male or female no matter what your anxiety is. Quantitative research is measurable data, meaning you are going to collect numbers that you can count and numbers that you can analyze. So, how do you go about choosing a topic? Well, we already mentioned that you start with your interests. And then you have to ask yourself, can I measure that? For example, I am interested in television viewing and preschoolers. So that's a little bit broad. There's a lot of things out there on television and preschoolers. So let me break it down. So my interest is television and preschoolers. And specifically, I've read some of the literature and I remember being interested in pre-literacy skills and violent behavior and ADHD and social skills and color shape recognition. Those are things I remember from the literature that have to do with television and preschoolers. The TV shows I remember, these are the things that are talked about in the articles. And so now I'm going to read up a little bit more, and I realize that I'm actually interested in the effects of TV viewing on pre-literacy skills. That's still a bit broad, so I read a little bit more, and now I've narrowed it down to the effects of educational TV viewing on pre-literacy skills. Because I see that in the literature there's a difference between regular TV programs and educational TV programs. Still a bit broad, I'm continuing to read and I've decided that the effects of educational TV viewing on pre-literacy skills among entering kindergarteners specifically. So this way I can concentrate on a specific group because developmentally there's a lot going on at that age. So now I have identified the gap in the literature. I haven't found anything that's on effects of educational TV on pre-literacy skills among entering kindergarteners. So now I have my research topic. The differences between the pre-literacy skills of entering kindergarteners who watch or do not watch preschool targeted TV programs. That's what I'm interested in. And there's my topic. Now what do I do with that? I have to find a way for that to be measurable. So my research question is a rephrasing of my topic. Are there differences between the pre-literacy skills of entering kindergarteners who watch or do not watch preschool targeted TV programs? So now I have to come up with my hypotheses, and then I can figure out how to measure these specifically. The hypothesis is my idea based on the readings of what the outcomes should be. So the readings have told me that there are certain things that influence the pre-literacy skills and TV viewing of these entering kindergarteners. So one is the amount of TV viewing can really make a difference. And the other thing is that gender and socioeconomic status seem to make a difference as well for pre-literacy skills. So now I can develop my hypotheses based on these variables that I know might affect my outcomes and the variables that I'm interested in investigating. So entering kindergarteners who watch some educational TV will be better prepared than those who do not. Among TV viewers, pre-literacy skills will display an inverted U-curve where achievement increases with up to 10 to 12 weekly hours of viewing, after which a decrease in achievement may be seen. Now this is one that specifically is related to existing research on a slightly older group that says that achievement increases with up to 10 to 12 weekly hours of viewing, and then a decrease can be seen. So I too am expecting this from these entering kindergarteners. The next hypothesis is the time spent viewing educational TV programs will have a greater effect on the pre-literacy skills for entering kindergartner girls than boys. And finally, because remember, I have to include all my variables in the hypotheses, socioeconomic status will not influence the impact that time spent viewing has on reading achievement. Now, let's make sure that we are using all of our variables. And let's decide, and then we will decide how these will be measured. So in the first hypothesis, entering kindergartners who watch some TV will be better prepared than those who do not. The variables that I'm looking at are pre-literacy skills, because that's what I'm measuring as being better prepared, and TV viewing behavior, right? The kindergartners watch some educational TV versus those who do not. The second hypothesis, I'm examining pre-literacy skills again, and I'm also examining TV viewing behavior. This time the TV viewing behavior will be measured a little bit differently. It will be measured as hours as opposed to whether or not they watch educational TV or not. Next hypothesis examines also pre-literacy skills, and it also looks at TV behavior, but it adds in the component of gender, which I know might be influential in the outcome. And finally, the same thing happens in hypothesis 4, but with socioeconomic status. I need to consider this because the existing research does say this might in fact influence my outcome. So now what do I need to answer my question? These are the variables that I'm going to measure, but how exactly do I measure them? What type of tools do I need to find this information out? So for pre-literacy skills, I've done my reading, and I see that there's different ways to collect this information. I could use a parent report survey that measures pre-literacy skills, and that way I don't have to directly interact with the children. So that might be better for the IRB, Institutional Review Board, and it might be quicker for me to collect my data because I have to finish during a certain amount of time, remember. I could also go and ask the schools for any data that they collected upon intake. A lot of schools will evaluate their entering kindergartners and see where they are on the spectrum of pre-literacy skills. Is that doable? I decide that the parent report survey is the best way to go. And I found a measure that looks at letters and number recognition, writing, and time spent reading. as the measures for pre-literacy skills. So now my hypothesis can be even more specific to these areas of pre-literacy. Is that doable? Yes. The next variable that I need to find out how to collect information on is the TV video media use, their viewing behavior. There are surveys out there that parents can also answer on how much their child watches and what they watch. Is that doable? Sure. I'm already reaching out to parents in a survey. And the last is our demographic information, the gender and the socioeconomic status. And is that doable? Why, yes, because I can add it on to the survey. Now I have to tailor my hypotheses because we got some additional information now that we actually found what measures, how we're going to measure our variables. So my first hypothesis is going to be broken down. I'm going to have even more hypotheses because I'm not just looking at pre-literacy skills. I'm actually looking at very specific things. For example, I am looking in the first one at entering kindergarteners who watch some educational TV. I'm predicting will score higher on letter and number recognition as measured by the Vinland scale than those who do not. You see, now I found my measure, the Vinland scale, and I know that it breaks it down, and I'm going to be looking specifically at letter and number recognition. I will do the same for each component of the scale that I am using in my survey. For my next hypothesis, I need to figure out, how exactly am I going to examine this? Again, I'm using the Vinland scale, so the measure is broken down, so I need to break down the hypothesis as well. So for this one, I'm looking at the amount of hours that children watch television, plus I'm going to examine each component of the Vinland scale to measure the pre-literacy skills. The next thing to do is to read and read and read. And then you read some more. Why? Because you have to make sure that you are in fact doing something unique. Perhaps somebody has done this already. That's something that you need to know. You need to make sure that you find a gap in the literature. So in all your reading, you'll come up with questions. You should write those down and see if those questions are answered. And if they're not, perhaps you can find a way to answer them. You then write an overarching research statement. This will be pretty broad and you'll need to narrow it down. Then you identify the related variables based on the readings. Sometimes there are those covariates that might impact your variables, just as we just identified gender in SES in the example that I gave you. You write your initial hypotheses. These are going to be tailored a bit based on your reading and what measures you use. You have to figure out what you need to collect the information on these variables. And then how you'll collect that. Will it be a survey? Will it be an interview? Will it be observational? And you have to ask if it's doable. Whatever time frame you have given yourself, you need to ask if that is doable. You need to ask yourself if you're able to go and do some research on the population you have chosen. Do you have access to those participants? How hard will it be to gain access? How long will it take to gain access? These are important questions. Then you tailor your hypotheses to the specific measures that you found to use. And if you need to, you write additional hypotheses. Okay, if you have any questions, please post them in the discussion area for the week. Have fun!